Good morning to all our brothers and sisters in Dallas, and some lovely photos there of Kala Didi visiting you and leaving behind many precious memories. I'm sure it looked like a very special time. And a very warm welcome to Sister Kala Didi, from me as well. It's lovely to have this opportunity to spend some time with you, and special for us because we worked out that we came to the Brahma Kumaris within a few months of each other. So we're almost sort of, we were babies together, and I have memories of you going back to those early days. So it's lovely to refresh that feeling and that connection. So warm welcome to you, Caliban.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Very, very warm and beautiful memories. Thank you, Ranjan Ben, for those wonderful photos. And yes, Philippa, our little chat, brief chat, actually revealed a lot about our origins as a Brahma Kumari, right? So that's very nice to know that here we are several years later, and let's see how far we've gone.
Yes. Well, let's hope we've had some life experience that can shed some light on this topic of harmony and purity. And it is interesting that we're having this discussion on the eve of Thanksgiving in America, when people traditionally put their differences aside for the sake of coming together as a family in unity and harmony. But also in the not so many days since you had your US election, which has created a lot of division within the US. So a real need for harmony in the US at the moment. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yes. I think actually for several years now, we've been experiencing this polarization and energy that creates around it, and feeling uncomfortable, but also very insecure, um, not only for personal reasons, but for collective reasons of what is it going to do to us as community, as nation, as world. So I think we've gotten to a point where what we're talking about is not just relevant to our individual lives, but it's really relevant to the whole world. Only that we have to just expand the impact of impurity million times over, I think, to see the impact of that. But here we are. Yes, let's talk about purity and not impurity. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the power of what purity can do.
Mm,
So you've been the director of Peace Village in upstate New York for over 25 years now. It's a community that roughly between 20 and 25 people residential at any one time. And as anyone in this field of spirituality knows, it's one thing to be spiritual, but it's another thing to be spiritual whilst living in a community, because that brings up so many issues and so much personal baggage that can clash with others. And it's not like you can go back to your house and just give that person a wide berth. You're living right with each other. What would you say has been your experience over those years of navigating times when, there wasn't always harmony?
hmm. Well, I mean, positioning it the way you have positioned it and looking back, it's almost scary to to go back and see what it was like in the very early days of my being in a community like this. Because one, of course, you come into something knowing the full scope of what you're coming into. But when you don't even know what that scope is, and it comes to you little by little, one by one, um, I mean, you deal with it, you handle it, but at the end of it, you look back and say, what was that all about? And how did I ever do that? Or, even if I didn't do it right, but I just passed through it, right? So, yes, I think, before I came to be living in Peace Village, let alone playing any kind of significant role here. I was not a people person, actually. I mean, before coming to even the Brahma Kumaris, let me tell you point blank, I was not a people person, not because I didn't like people, I didn't love people, but I did not like to displease people or to make people unhappy or not, go according to what they would say or whatever. But coming into a place like Peace Village, which of course not only is a very active and service-oriented place, physically speaking, but we also stand for certain values, right? And certain principles, so to speak. And so putting the two together to continue to do the work, the physical work, and to kind of help and facilitate people around that, but also to do it according to the principles and the values that you hold dearly as an organization. I think it was quite a stir, it was like a whirlwind inside my head. And so looking back, the only way I could have done it is in my brief moments of sanity around meditation, around reflection, around some quiet time for myself, things would come to me, a little bit more clear than when I was in the middle of an argument or when I was in the middle of a situation where I had to make a decision or anything like that. So I think what I value most dearly is those private moments where I could really get in touch with my own self, my own authentic values, in combination with, of course, the values of the organization that I have chosen. But then there was also another layer in which I found out that, okay, it's not just me, I've come with my values, but everybody else has come with their own set of values too. And yet, when on the surface you see something, why does it come across as difference? Even though we have come to accept that we are spiritual beings, we are here to make a contribution, a valuable contribution. We're here to serve. We're here to kind of go back to our authentic values. And yet, on the field, when you're with each other or on a project with each other, why would it come across as difficult? And then I realized something, that yes, of course, we are all on our individual journey. But what does that mean, individual journey? Is that each one of us has come very far from, what we hold as authentic or original. Either events of life, non-events of life, whatever, have geared us in a particular direction of setting certain values higher than other values. And many of these values are kind of connected, not so much to authentic values, but the original values, but they're kind of connected to physical existence, right? For example, in my own family, education was at the top of things, right? It was a value that everybody kind of promoted. But in another family, as I learned, that was not the case. What was important for them is, keeping relations, for example. That's more important. Or keeping their environment clean, for example. That was more important. So I think we all come with a different set of priorities, so to speak, values. So I call it hierarchy of values, so we all have our hierarchy of values that we hold on to dearly. And here is an organization that's trying to operate with the help of all of us people in this melting pot, with our different set of values, So one time when we sat and really did a little exercise of, our values and the values that we hold dearly for each of our departments, it made a lot of sense. Why are people the way they are? Because for them, certain things are priorities, and for me, it is not. So it took me a while to understand that. That little exercise really, did a lot for me. The hierarchy of values, we sorted out, and then we could understand where the other person is coming from. Why did they want to spend so much money on cleaning up the pond, for example? Whereas, here we are struggling for finances, or whatever it may be. So I think it was a real learning experience, not just even spirituality doesn't come just as learning from the books, but it really comes from being with people, relating to people, understanding people where they're coming from. And then, of course, combining that with, what spirituality has to offer, which is really about respect, which is really about, uh, putting someone else first, which is about humility, which is about communication, all of that, loving communication and all of that. So I really saw the two sides of the coin coming together very beautifully, in terms of our spiritual knowledge and practice, but also our understanding of each other on a mundane level, I think, became very important. And the other thing I can think of, which became important for me, is again my people skills, uh, which we are not taught in school. We're taught in, as much as even I come from a medical background, and relationship are a big part of that, but we're not really taught. It's not really given that much of an importance as such. But then I really began to understand that, a lot of things can be uh, um, changed, or considerably transformed. The situation, the impact of a situation can be considerably transformed just by using better people skills with each other. Um, Listening, for example, to each other, with an open heart, without judging, and, without any kind of preconditioning or biases. These are all things that happen day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, and you almost do it as if it's a matter of fact, and not even realize it's happening. So one of the things I began to be very sensitive to is how I relate to people. I remember, for example, once, this was very early on in my spiritual life, and I had a call from someone, and I kind of, and it was a very close friend of mine, and so-called close friend. And I started, communicating or saying, what's the matter? What can I do? Whatever. And what this person said to me really took me unaware. And she said, "You are so cold," on the phone. So I think I never saw myself as a cold person, right, at that time, but it really opened my door to, how am I communicating? Because I was very direct, very focused on what the call was about. I had no intention of going into any other conversation of how are you doing, what's happening with this one, that one, the social skills, if you may, right? I mean, I didn't do any of that. But those are all like the core, if you want to smooth the corners of a relationship, right? I think there is a whole bit to, rather than just a task within a relationship. So I began to really feel and really put relationships before tasks. Because when you come back to, who is this person I'm talking to? What do I want to know about this person? What do I already know about this person? So you would adapt your communication to that. You would perhaps listen a little more. You would perhaps, give a little more information, or not give so much information. You'll kind of tailor your communication accordingly. So it was a lot of those learning on the job kind of thing, for me.
I really connect with all of that. I'm part of a little group within the Brahma Kumaris called the Shiv Shakti Leadership Group. And we have a saying in that group, connection before solution. So, in
Mm,
other words, it's the relationship, the connection you have with someone that is more important than whatever solution you might be able to come up with or that is needed in that moment. And that's a nice guiding principle. And I was reflecting on the word harmony, and in musical terms, what it means is a number of different chords or notes that aren't the same as each other, but they come alongside each other and they all kind of complement each other and support each other. And I think it's important to remember that harmony doesn't mean that we all have to think the same thing. It means that our thinking can come alongside each other
mm,
and complement or reflect another quality, but and together it can create a whole picture. We're not looking for a cookie cutter solution. We are all going to have different ways of seeing things based on our past life experience. But I liked what you said about really appreciating your moments of quiet reflection and what those gave you. And I'm curious as to whether you feel some of the lack of harmony has been overcome through just sending good wishes, through finding in your own heart a space big enough to hold all the different opinions, what you might call bhavana, the good wishes that you can send to someone who's really struggling. Is that something that you have consciously worked with, trying to bring harmony through the power of your mind?
I bet I did. Except at the time that I was doing it, I think I was unaware that that's what I was doing. That's what was happening, rather, right? Because things happen when you're quiet and in, remembrance of a higher being that shift inside of you. And those are mostly what you're talking about, the feelings and the vibrations, whether it is towards one specific person or a situation or whatever. But often enough, yes, it would happen unaware. And then I would realize later on, wow, that wasn't me who did that. It was just the energy that came across that did that. So yes, definitely, I began to trust that more and more as time went. And I began to actually use that as a tool more and more, because a lot of times we hear these things, but we don't have faith in those tools, and therefore I feel they're not effective either. We kind of hear it as a cliche or, hear it as a something, yes, that would be nice kind of thing. But once you see something working like that, then you really begin to have faith in it. And when you do and use it with that kind of faith, I feel you really are, much better equipped to do that. Yeah, definitely bhavna, rather than just blurting out, whatever needs to be said, is definitely a big part of it, I think. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, can be more, can't it, than words sometimes.
and sometimes, for example, I'd be sitting with one person or two persons in a room, and the few minutes that we spend together in quiet time, before we start a conversation, could be the most crucial moments of the conversation, because it kind of sets the tone to the conversation. And I think I've seen magic happen because of that. Things shift, not only in myself, but it also shifts in others. It kind of puts
Mm,
them in a different platform, and not tit for tat kind of thing, but they're also in a listening mode. And they're
mm,
also objective. They're also able to to see the other person's point of view. So it's really kind of almost creating an atmosphere through that practice. And that I find fascinating more and more. And I think as times are getting more tough and challenging, and, like, if I may say, if as karmic, connections with each other are coming up more strongly, I feel a lot of our work has to happen through that change of atmosphere, I feel, through our individual practice of connection. Yes. Mhm.
One of my favorite stories about Daddy Janki, one of our original senior sisters, was that she created such a powerful energy around herself based on her own practice, that people would come to her with their complaints of what this one had done, that one had said, and they would come into her presence, and Daddy Janki's energy would be so powerful that they would forget what it was they had come to complain about, because it just seemed to kind of not matter anymore, or it just dissolved in that moment. So, not to underestimate the power of just creating our stage as a tool for overcoming obstacles, either within ourselves or within others. But, to this point of, purity brings harmony. What do you feel it is about purity itself that can influence harmony? Is it a question of the purity of our own habit formations, of our own lifestyle, of our own thoughts, of our own mind? How do you understand purity bringing harmony?
Mm. So I'm I'm not sure, because this is coming up a lot in our lessons these days, the spiritual lessons these days, but this whole aspect of ego that I carry with me, my sense of myself, um, based on what is that, is that sense of me, is it based on something temporary, something that puts down others, so I think for me at this point in time, at least, what I'm focusing on is to be completely devoid of this false sense of myself that I want to prove, to someone or through something. And once I myself am able to let go of that, I can be a good instrument for the divine to work through, whatever that situation needs. It could probably go, flow through me. But if I become an obstacle by holding on to, I want it this way, or I have my own personal agenda of some kind, even if it's a good agenda, for example, it's a good outcome that I'm looking for, and yet it's coming from a place of, lack of a better word, ego, then I feel I've kind of become an obstacle in creating harmony in some way or the other. And by the same token, if I have no self-interest, selfish interest, but only the interest of the ultimate good, I could very well be used as an instrument. Even I may not have any professional skills, I may not have any physical skills, I may not even have, a physical title to kind of, come into a situation and solve anything. But somehow or somehow, I think the divine would use me to kind of facilitate towards the solution of that for a particular thing. I want to go back to that story you said about the harmony of musicians, for example, and it's all of us coming together. And so what I'm thinking about is really the pride that each one takes in creating their own notes, right? There is such a self-respect and pride, and uh, I would say, well-placed ego, there was self-respect. It's not ego, but it's self-respect for doing what I know to do best, and it's coming from a very pure place. It's a God-given talent. It's not mine, but it's a God-given talent, but I'm using it. And I'm using it along with what others have been given as gifts as well to create this beautiful music, right? So there's a lot of attention on the self. There's a lot of appreciation, that it's not me who is doing it, but it's a divine gift. And so if one person can do it, but if a few of us together can do it, I mean, what a remarkable outcome of music that would be. And I heard once recently that, when few people come to create different notes and different, strings, and each one has to pay a lot of attention to their own individual practice. I heard that about 80% of their time of practice is just by themselves. And then when they come together, they can create this beautiful music. So we all have to perfect our own notes so well, so that when we come together, then it really creates beautiful music. So I was just thinking.
Absolutely.
Mm,
It is a lovely analogy because it also is about there's no need for you to try and copy someone else's note
right.
because you think their note is a nice note. That is their note. So you stay with your own note. And also what can happen when you're singing in harmony is the person standing next to you, they can pull you away from the note that you're meant to be holding because you get influenced by their note.
Fraction,
So
yeah.
it's about really staying strong in, what is mine to do, and being clear, this is what I'm being asked, and just being honest and faithful to what is your contribution to creating this lovely all-round harmony. And I really liked what you said as well about ego and, in a sense, dropping the story of who I am in the physical form and concentrating instead on who am I as a spiritual being without this physical body. It comes back to the very first lesson of Raj Yoga, of soul consciousness. And, really, if we can stay in the consciousness that we are not this body, we are non-physical beings, then on that level, where can the conflict come? Because naturally, we're going beyond all those differences to a place of natural unity and harmony. And maybe this is how we can create global harmony, is with this message of you're not the physical being. Concentrate instead on this eternal non-physical being where all those differences just melt away. It's quite powerful when you really think about it, isn't it?
And yes, and I was even thinking one step further that these differences can even complement each other. What I can't, you can. What you can, I can't. So together we achieve something much greater than we each could have achieved by ourselves, individually put together, so it's also about how this difference or this variety is important to our existence as humanity, that we can't all be alike. We can't all be good in the same things. Yes, of course, there are some rough edges that we have to chip off. But at the end of the road, I think the fun is in walking together, walking together, playing together, dancing together, singing together. It creates so much more joy and fun and learning for us, I think. But it's very, very grateful that we have the lessons of spirituality that we do, just like you said, the basics of spirituality, of the practice of I, the soul. If it was not for that ABC, we couldn't do, all the great things we want to do, we intend to do. God wants us to do all of that. So it's very beautiful.
How have you found the balance between harmonizing your sanskaras or character traits in order to bring about unity, and yet not selling yourself short of standing by something that is true to you and important to you, and you wouldn't be honest with yourself if you didn't speak that truth in that moment. How do you find that balance?
Again, I think it's been a big learning. And I think the learning is actually the big part of that learning, I think, comes from, uh, again, standing in my own self-respect, um, and knowing that what I am going for is the right thing. I don't have to waver. If other people don't agree, it's still okay. Uh, I may not, it may not create the sense of harmony immediately, but if I am authentic and stay to those authentic values, and if those values are high enough in that hierarchy of values for me, I stay true to that and I wait patiently for harmony to happen. It may not happen right away, it just may take some time. But and that again is my learning, that how strong can I hold on to something that I feel is authentic and important. That's a test to my own authenticity, isn't it? So it's not always so clear. So for me, the real challenge is clarity. Once I'm clear, then it's easy for me. Mhm.
I've found in situations sometimes that rather than speak your truth in that moment, you just hold it very powerfully and wait. And often someone else will say something that is very close to what you were feeling. And then you can say, yes, I really support you in that. I
Yeah,
really agree with you in that.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
patience and waiting for the right moment rather than just,
Mm,
my idea is the idea that we should take up here, or I think this title for the program is the best title. Just sit back and wait,
mm.
because the energy between you, that same idea will pop up somewhere else in all likelihood.
Right. And
And
there
then
are,
you can then support.
yeah, so true, because there are many times you can let go. I mean, it's not a life and death game. Sometimes you
Mhm.
want to hold on to very strongly because it's something that's quite important to the ongoing integrity of your own self, or, the integrity of the organization or anything. But a lot of times you can sit
Yeah.
with it and trust it to happen.
Have you ever had any situations where you felt, I really can't see the way through with this situation? There are such opposing opinions here.
Oh,
I
yes.
don't actually see how we solve this.
Oh, yes, yes. And you go to bed with that. And the next morning, something happens that magically just turns the whole thing around, or another third person comes, or another person comes, and, everything changes. Yes, yes, all the time. Divine intervention, they call it. So those things do
Mhm.
happen. I think that's where the
Mhm.
purity of intention comes in, that I should never let go of my purity of intention to create harmony at the end of the road. It's not yours and
Mm.
mine. That's not the crucial question. But the question is about, getting it done harmoniously. So yeah,
Mhm.
it has happened many times. Mhm.
Mm. Yeah.
And
So how have you developed?
I
Yeah,
can't
carry on.
take credit for that.
Right.
It's because of I give credit to the purity of intention that we hold, I think.
Mm.
Mhm.
I'll just say at this point, if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask Kala Didi in relation to having a difficult relationship where there's a lack of harmony, and any tips or suggestions for how to tackle that situation, do please post your question in the chat and I can guide Sister Kala to answer that. Do you know how it is that you have developed your communication skills, your people skills, your conflict resolution skills? Has that just come about over a period of time, Or is there anything else you've done that has helped you develop those qualities?
It's basic stuff. Basic stuff. What I mean is, one of the things I remember, I must share this incident with you, and it had to do with my very first public talk that I had to give at the beginning of my spiritual life, weekly life. And I was sharing with someone even the other day how I had offered myself to do the talk, even though I have never ever talked in front of 2 or 3 people, but before, I didn't have that experience or confidence or anything, but I was just so intoxicated that I want to share this message. It was a program on mind over matter, I think. And I offered myself, I volunteered myself that I'll do the talk, but then on the day off, um, I didn't know what I had said yes to, and I was so nervous, so nervous. And so I went in front of the audience and I just went to, nowhere, nothing, to that divine source, and, just connected. And all I could remember after that is that the whole room went light, just white light. I couldn't see any faces. I couldn't see any, anybody that I knew. I didn't know there, nothing. All I could see was just light. And somehow or the other, I went through the program because I'd prepared. It's not that I was not prepared. I was prepared. But at the moment, it was such a big, huge, impossible thing for me. So in terms of how I have developed, I think my source of courage, of, confidence has really been, the connection with that one source. And the other practice that I can think of that has probably contributed a lot is what we practice here, the soul to soul vision, not just seeing people as people, but seeing people as human beings of light, specifically as a point of light in the center of the forehead. So as much as we can practice that, I know that um, over a period of time, whenever I have practiced that consciously, it has made a tremendous difference in the way I relate to people, especially those people that I have started to practice my soul to soul vision.
Mm.
And yeah, and again, knowing that I don't have to always convey to the next person what I am uncomfortable conveying, but I can convey to the one up above. But I must again maintain purity of my, connection and intention for the person next door. And then a lot will be taken care of by that. So I think, yeah, I haven't
Very
done
nice.
courses as such or things like that, no. But I
Mm.
think it's
No.
a lot of the spiritual practices help. Mhm.
Mm. Mhm. In a way, this experience leads very nicely onto our first question, because you were talking about maintaining that connection with the God of your understanding, with the divine source. And we've had a question here saying that harmony, in a way, starts with submission, that we surrender to the will of God, to the Creator Spirit. And if everyone is doing that, if everyone is surrendering or coming into submission to the Divine One, then surely that will bring more harmony.
Mhm. Yes, I can see where that is true. And I guess the surrender is really the surrender of the ego, isn't it? Um, that I am the right one. To hold on to that aspect of, I have the right answer for this, or I have the right method for this, or this is the right thing that should happen. So once I let go of that, once I let go of the I within that, not that I let go of the idea itself, but I let go of the I within that, then the right itself will do its job, right? Whatever is right itself will do its job. And this is what Dadi Janki again used to, playfully say about harmony. Harmony means harmony. I accept defeat. And so if I accept defeat, there's nothing to fight about. There's only harmony. In Hindi,
Just
harmony.
break down those words, what they mean, ha and money. What do
Har,
they mean?
har, defeat. Mani is
Defeat.
I accept defeat. Okay, you're right. I accept defeat. So if one person lets go of the defenses, there's nothing to fight about, and there is harmony. So many times the fight or the battle that we stand up for is not worth it. Just by simply letting go, we allow a different energy to flow. And who knows, maybe the other person will change their way of thinking too. Once that energy flows, the positive energy flows, maybe they'll begin to see the light too, but not to hold on heavily to something that's not worth it. That's how I understood it, interpreted it always.
Very, very nice. So the first thing to let go of is the I, the consciousness of I as a separate individual, because that comes with all its own baggage. So I hope that answers your question on submitting to the creator. So our next question is about how we create a lack of harmony within ourselves. When we take life events very seriously, we have things that happen, we worry about them. But if everything is preordained and is going to be happening according to its own time and its own rules, why do we worry about things? Because it's preordained. So just let go and accept.
Yeah, so why don't we accept? Is that the question?
Why do we worry?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the worry comes from our desire, whether conscious or unconscious desires that we hold on, deep inside. I want it to be a certain way, even though we know ultimately about the right and the good and the love and all of those things, but deep in our hearts, we hold on to certain ways that we want to see things happen. And, there's some subtle expectations or subtle desires. And I think most of the worry comes from that, as far as I personally can see for myself. Once I've let go of that personal desire or expectation, I think I'll be happy with drama, whatever it presents, and I'll be able to deal with it. And maybe I can even feel that it's good. Maybe it will even present itself as something good for me. But I think the desire part is takes away from the easiness of things.
Very, very lovely. We do tend to think that our way is the best way, that our way of seeing things is the right way of seeing things, and it's not always the case. So it might feel to you that it's very strong and passionate, this belief, this idea that you're holding on to, but there might be something better that you hadn't thought of. So learning to just be very light touch with, what we're thinking, we're holding, and put all of our effort and passion into it, but also be prepared to let go in a moment because you're not having attachment to your own ideas. I think that's another lovely guiding principle. So thank you so much for the questions that were sent. I think that is all we have time for today. I wonder, Sister Color, if I could invite you to just lead us in a beautiful meditation where we can find harmony within ourselves, find harmony within our relationships, and ultimately find harmony for this world that is so struggling to find harmony at the moment. Give us some inspiration for those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philippa. It's lovely chatting.
Really lovely.
So let's take a few moments of that beautiful silence that we talked about. Just consciously clearing my mind. And clearing my heart. Becoming still. And gently becoming aware that there is a part of myself that has to do with reasoning, and making sure that things are right. There's another part of me just down to earth and very much in touch with feelings. Almost like I have the right hand and the left hand. And both of them, by coming together, create a beautiful posture. Namaste. One of respect, mutual admiration, and even cooperation. So also I allow my head and the heart to come together. To be this one authentic being, I, the soul. A being of light. And when I do that, I see my whole self. I feel the wholeness. The fullness. Capacity that I have to create that feeling of oneness. As if all the dust has settled down. All questions answered, all problems resolved. The sense of harmony. A state in which I, the soul, am in complete union with the higher being of wisdom and love and power.